Hi, it's MUSOLINI, the Merchant of Success. Welcome once again. And it's the Art of Overcoming Procrastination 2.0. This subject is so dear to my heart because when I look back, if there is one for me, my biggest blockage has been that procrastination, holding out on things I could have done today. I've lost business opportunities. I've lost some relationships, I would imagine, because I hesitated, did not take action. So in that life, what I know is that life rewards action. Okay. So meaning when you procrastinate, then you lose out big time. I've lost a lot because of procrastination. And when I look at things where I have made progress, it's when I've not let procrastination stand in my way. So I've tested both ends of the coin, and this seems to be one of the biggest challenges that we face as a human race. And therefore, for us to continue growing in our personal lives, in our careers or business, then this is a monster we have to tame. That's not a good language. This is a challenge we need to tame, okay? So I follow a 5-step framework when I'm teaching. That is clarity, where we look at what is and why that subject is important. We look at the useful mindsets because, again, if with the wrong mindset, even if you have the right skill sets, but with the wrong mindset, you will not succeed. And then, of course, we think through these strategies. What are those big blocks that we need to put in place? And then next, we think through what are the skill sets that will enable us to bring those strategies to life. And finally, we look at mastery. How do we then embody the knowledge, the wisdom, the strategies, and the skills so they are second nature to us? So let's kick off with clarity. And I like this quote from Seneca. It's one of those wisest beings that have ever lived. You should expose yourself to his works. It says, while we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. That is quite a scary thought, in that life doesn't stop. It is slipping away. About 3 days ago, I was watching a video, I believe by Sadhguru, I believe so. And he said something that was quite challenging to listen to. And I feel as if, as I'm reflecting, it's as if God was preparing me to link it to this particular point right here, as I'm picking it up. He said, look, in life, for every 30 minutes gone, just know you're getting closer to the end of your life. Think about that. That was such a scary thought, saying, look, either way, our life will end on planet Earth here. So every passing moment, we're getting closer to that end. He actually used death. And I believe Seneca is also using the same thought here, in that life is slipping away because you have a certain finite amount of time on this planet. And so for every moment, you know, that time frame, if it's ending here, that's it. So every time you're going, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone, it's gone. Life is slipping away. And that procrastination is the act of delaying or putting off tasks until the last minute or past their deadline. I used to be a master at this when I was in high school. 2 weeks to go, that's when I would start revising seriously. That's how I ended up hating coffee. Why? Because I waited till the last 2 weeks to the time of exam, so would have coffee throughout the night. So would have coffee and then go to bed at about 5 a.m. and then I have to wake up at about 7 o'clock. So 2 hours of sleep sometimes. So because I took too much coffee, it's like it got up to here, right? Coffee, by the way, if taken in good moderation, is good, I'm told. But that's it. So waiting till last minute. But I knew that the timetable was there. So that was classic procrastination. So why is this subject important? Procrastination causes unnecessary anguish, whether consciously or subconsciously, from trying to avoid the task. So, you know, you know you have to do something, but you're not doing it. And I've been in those moments many times. You know, you should be doing something, but you're not doing it. So there's that anguish, that tension inside your body, inside your mind, inside your heart. That's anguish. That's what I mean by anguish. It's that tension. It also affects the quality of work. The final output is short of what you're really capable of. I'll give you an example. There's a time I was supposed to submit a bid. Yes, a bid document. And then it arrived on my desk last, you know, meaning we had like 3 hours to submit that document. And I discovered there was an error that my team had not picked up. And so I had to, and I knew we did not have the luxury to go back and print and all that. So I had to cross and countersign against that figure. And that was not a true reflection of what the actual quality would have been. Why did that happen? Procrastination somehow caught us in the team. Okay. Again, I'm sharing these things such that because I don't want to stand here as if I'm this pristine, perfect angel. I'm saying that sometimes these things also catch up with me. And that's what gives me the authority and expertise to talk about these things, because I've been on both ends. It affects your productivity and limits your career growth. I've sat down with executives who say, you know what, that fellow is really good, but the challenge is, you know, even though he's brilliant, he brings in his work late and you know, he doesn't produce as much. And part of that is because of procrastination. So it limits how far or how much you can progress in your career. So it can be very, very costly if you do not arrest this challenge of procrastination. It's also important to note that 20% of individuals identify themselves as chronic procrastinators, as per research by Dr. Joseph Ferrari. And I'm sure even in this room, again, you don't have to type it in the chat box, would say up until now, you could have been identifying yourself as a chronic procrastinator. Though please do not pronounce that now. We were saying up until now, all right? Moving forward, you're a different new being, all right? That's the good news. Study conducted by Darius Farrar, 2,219 people revealed that around 88% of the workforce tend to procrastinate at least 1 hour a day. So, meaning at least in that 1 hour, you are supposed to do something, but you don't do it. So, meaning instead of a result, then there is an excuse. So that's something for you to note. Now, now let's look at the mindset. The 4 key mindsets that will help you eliminate procrastination. Number 1 is the accountability mindset. The accountability mindset helps you put mechanisms in place that help to hold you accountable. This could be a colleague, a buddy, or a supervisor. The other one, which I find very useful, is having a coach or a mentor, someone. For me, what I know is that for a coach, then they will, they will keep you on not on a leash, but if you have a session, for example, with a coach, you know that next week I have to report this, I have to put this on the table. That puts you on the edge to make sure that you deliver. I'll give you an example. There's something I feel I should have done by this date. So I was supposed to do it by last Monday. So this is what I told my coach. I sit in with my coach every Monday. We link up, we hook up. So yeah, the truth is I procrastinated and I should have done it by last Monday and I didn't. So what did I do? I told him, if by this Monday, which is tomorrow at 2 p.m., if I haven't delivered, I'll pay him $100. So that's my accountability mechanism. And guess what? I'm not going to give him my $100, okay? So that's an accountability mechanism I'm putting in place, because I know that if I don't, then it will be a second week of delay. No, and I don't want to do that. It would be costly to me. So you have to think, what is that accountability mechanism you can put in place? And for me, I have a coach and mentor I meet on a weekly basis. I actually have a couple. And so I've given you a practical example, something I'm going through right now. And within less than 24 hours, I know I would have delivered. And I know I'm on track, trust me, okay? So that's the accountability mindset. It pushes you, because ultimately we are human beings. I'm yet to find someone super perfect. And therefore you need a mechanism to push you, okay? That's why there are these, that's why you find at school there are supervisors, there are teachers, there's a bell ringing. That's an accountability mechanism in place. Meaning, stop whatever you're doing, let's go, let's go, let's go, right? That's an accountability mechanism. So you need to use these sorts of mindsets and play these tricks on yourself. The rigid commitment. This mindset helps you to stay steadfast on your commitments. So let me give you an example. So right now, I have a rigid commitment that at this particular time, I have to appear on Zoom. It's a rigid commitment. It's not, we will see how I'm feeling or whether the weather is nice or not. No, it is a rigid commitment, locked in and non-negotiable. That's it. So, and it usually helps when you do a public pronouncement, like in this particular context, it's a public pronouncement. So I've committed myself and I've mentioned the particular time. And even before we start, I usually send out, sometimes I send out a message saying we are starting at 4 sharp. And, you know, we've kept that promise. So it's a rigid commitment. So that's the other mindset that I find very useful, that puts you to the, that puts you on the wall to make sure and say, this is it. The other mindset, which I find useful, is the service mindset, meaning you do what needs to be done. You have to be of service. You ask yourself, how does this serve humanity? This has been, in my book, in my world, this has been the most helpful to me, because some of these things that I do, they are quite challenging logically. They may not make sense. And yet they drive the spirit of, oh, but this would serve humanity, then pushes me, and then boom, it has to be done. So like these series that I'm doing at the moment, I know they serve humanity, and therefore I have to go. I kept thinking, I kept moving it, say a week, and then I'm like, but you know what? I'm not serving people. Even if this reaches 1 person or 2 people, hey, I would have made a difference in their lives. So time to go. This is the date. On. The game is on, no matter what. So it's not about waiting for, because I was like, okay, let me first give it so much time that we have many participants and all that. And I said, oh, but then there are these other ones who need me now. They need what I have. This could be useful to them. This could be transformative to them at a mental, emotional, and spiritual level. So this is it. I have to go. That's a service mindset. Once you ask yourself, how does this serve humanity? How does this help humanity? How does this help my organization? How does this help my family? How does this help the people who are counting on me? How does this positively impact this? And how costly could it be? to the community, to my team, to my organization, to my family, then that will give you a kick in the rear to get going. Okay, so for me, this to me has been the most inspirational mindset for me to get moving, to get going. And again, like I mentioned, so I'm giving you these mindsets. It's you to see the one that most resonates with you. The idea is to have all of them, okay? All I'm saying is that the one that I've leaned on the most, that has moved me the most, is the service mindset. Because when I know that, okay, this is going to help people, then everything else stops. Whatever I need to spend, whoever I need to talk to, I will talk to them. I will even spend the last coin or whatever it is to make sure that I go out and serve humanity. The other one is the growth mindset, which seems to be consistent throughout. And the growth mindset is you feel challenges, you learn from the challenges, you fail and get up. You hate to do it, but you do it because it is necessary. Meaning you look at that, like I had mentioned last time, how discomfort is the key to growth. So the key thing is you notice this thing pushing you or pulling you or stretching in between. You look at it as a growth moment. Because the truth of the matter is there are those moments where you know you have to do something and it's challenging. It is scary. Talking about scary, we have a neighbor was, able to see through the fence, the neighbor. And, this young man, they have a goat, which I believe they are going to use for Eid. And so there's a young man who is about the age of 9 or thereabouts. And there was this young girl who is possibly about the age of 4, and she was scared of the goat. So this 9-year-old boy just says, you come and see the goat. And the girl was crying, said, now the guy went and yanked him up and started dragging the young lady, the young girl, say, okay, come and face your fear, come and face your fear. And I saw the girl really screaming. So I had to shout out through the fence and ask the young man to stop that, because whereas I liked the statement of come face your fear, I also believed that from a psychological perspective, this young girl could be a traumatic experience for her. Okay. Now, so I can tell that this young man, whether consciously or unconsciously, wanted the sister to grow through it. Even though I felt it was not the right time and the way it was being done was wrong, because if you just force someone into something, they have a negative attachment to that experience. And in this context, it could be traumatic for the young girl. And I actually noticed that the goat is actually an aggressive goat. Later I discovered. Who knows, it could have hurt her. So the point I'm making is that yes, what this young man wanted was growth through the challenge. And for us who are adults, we can consciously psych ourselves and say, you know what? Yes, I am fearing this. It's uncomfortable. I don't have all the answers, but I'm just going to go. All right. I like that part of I don't have all the answers, because I've noticed that one of the things that really hold us back is waiting for all the answers. How do I know? I've been a victim of that. Because even like with this series, I would say, okay, but I need to put this in place, but I don't have this yet. I don't have that yet, but I need this, I need that. Had all these stories. I said, you know what? Let's go. Because this is what I learned. That the key, and this is something I wanted to emphasize, one of the biggest causes of procrastination is something called the drive or the excuse of perfection. And one of my teachers many years ago shared this with me. He said, you don't have to get it perfect, you just have to get it going. You don't have to get it perfect, get it going. And the other saying, which I found very useful, is that 70% out there in the marketplace is better than 100% perfect, which is still in your head. Because with 70% in the marketplace, you get feedback, you get the lessons. At least that something serves someone. So meaning you don't need all the answers. If you have, let's say 60 to 70% of the answers, go. You'll find the other answers along the way. And that's what I decided to do. We said, you know what? Don't have everything in place. Let's go. We have enough to get going. The other liberating mindset, please write this one down. Think in terms of versions, not the only and only perfect version, but you think in versions. Version 1.0. This is version 2.0 of this product. If I was waiting for the perfect product, even version 1.0 wouldn't be out by now. But you know what? Version 1.0 is out, has impacted several people, and now we are on version 2.0. Is it perfect? No. Is it valuable? Absolutely. And I know by the time you're done, you'll know what I'm talking about. Even just these mindsets alone, I'm sure you're getting value. So let's just suppose I just stopped here. Let me just do a quick rundown. Let's just suppose I just stopped here. Have you gotten some value? Are you blessed in one way or the other? Is there something that has been awakened in you or challenged you or poked you? Have I added some value already? Even if we were just to stop here right now as is. I know there is much more coming, but if you feel already you've been challenged or something has popped up in your head or been motivated to, just type the word yes if it has already. Just type in the chat box. Grace says yes. Go ahead. Yes, I'm seeing another yes from Naso. Stacia says yes, yes. So the point I'm making is I'm seeing so many yeses coming through. Sharon says yes, yes, Miriam, yes, Patricia, yes, Bell, yes. So the point I'm making, my friend, is see, this is not perfect. You and I know that this is not all the wisdom in the world. But so if I had held back, just waiting for the most perfect product that I could kickstart it and say, oh, mon ami, I don't know whether that's the true one. The key thing is once you have enough, get going, okay? Grace says, you're already picking the fact that I need the accountability mindset. Absolutely, yeah. So thank you for confirming what I was saying in that the growth mindset, you have blockages, you have challenges, not that you have all the answers, but you get going and then you figure out the rest along the way. It's Martin Luther King who said, you know what? You just need to take the first step. You don't need to see the whole stairway. You just need to see the next step on the stairway. And then once you take that first step, the second one will be clear. Once you take the second, the third one will be clearer. But if you're waiting to see the whole thing, then my friend, you will be stuck in the wonderland of procrastination. And it can be costly because as you have clearly given me feedback, if I hadn't, then this value would have been held back because I was waiting to be perfect, to appear perfect before humanity. No, once you have value, once you have 70%, go. Then the other answers will come along the way. All right, cool. Now, let's look at strategies. Here are the 5 strategies for getting rid of procrastination. Strategy number 1, reward strategy. Set ways in which you can appreciate yourself accomplishing tasks. Talk yourself into it. What do I mean? You could promise yourself, say, you know what? Once I finish this report, then that's the time for me to go and get a drink. So for me, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I like checking out Arsenal news. So I usually say to myself, okay, once I finish this, before I check out the latest news, I have to first finish this. All right? Funny reward, but I'm just telling you what it is for me. So it's you to think, what are those little rewards? They could be little or big, doesn't matter, that you can give yourself. So that once you accomplish something, you actually reward yourself. Now, that's very crucial in a sense that you're telling your brain that finishing a task is very useful. It is enjoyable. It's you to, I'm not going to propose to you what that could be. It depends on what is motivating or inspiring to you. That's what you should go for. And the key thing is you want to link accomplishment with pleasure, okay? Because if you don't, then you won't feel as excited. That's why usually when I'm talking to staff members, to people who work, I tell them, look, most of you have salaries and they don't mean anything to you. So that's why whenever my wife, for example, goes ahead and buys for herself, say, a nice dress or something like that, I always tell her, oh, fantastic, that's great. I'll never, ever berate her, say, how could you spend all that money on yourself? No, she's making the money. It should mean something to her. So it's a reward to say, you're telling your psyche, oh, it's good to work. So in the same way, when you're engaged in these other tasks, it's up to you. You could say, you know what? Once I finish this, then I watch a movie. Or once I do this, I will go have a glass of juice. Okay. So you're prompting yourself. Next is the bits and pieces approach. So what you do is, it's not chunk, but chunk down. You chunk down your work into small pieces. This makes it more doable and enticing to do. Okay. So what I mean by that is, instead of thinking about the whole project, the whole project, think in smaller bits and pieces. Rather than thinking, this report, how am I going to work on it? That's huge. Start imagining 60 pages. You're thinking, no. Just think, okay, today I'm just going to do the outline. Then tomorrow I'll do the introduction. The other day I'll do this. So you give yourself those smaller chunks. If you're procrastinating about walking, and you've not exercised for a long time, what I advise people is, do not think of working out for 30 minutes or even an hour. No, think in terms of exercising today for 5 minutes. When you say 5 minutes, that sounds small. Then next week, you can do 10 minutes. Week 2, 15. Week 4, 20 minutes. Week 5, 25 minutes. Week 6, 30 minutes. Now, all of a sudden, it looks very possible. But you just chunk it down in smaller pieces. That's what I advise my private coaching clients. Let's chunk it down in smaller pieces. So for whatever you're thinking about, ask yourself, how can I chunk it down into smaller pieces? And once you do, then things will be much, much easier for you. But when you think about it in such a huge manner, my friend Javi used to say that, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. So think in terms of smaller pieces, a piece you can chew now, rather than imagining the whole elephant in your tummy. No, just one bite. That's all it takes. Before you know it, the elephant is gone. Never mind, I don't know people who eat elephants, but you get to the point. Number 3 is peak time strategy. See, everyone has that particular time where they are at their best. Do the hardest tasks during this time. That's also a productivity strategy. So if you know, for example, that the task requires a lot of your mental, emotional, and physical energies, and then if you make them to, or if you position them, or to make them appear at that particular moment when you're super tired, then it's going to be a challenge. So it's better to make sure that you schedule them. That's the word I was looking for. Make sure that you schedule them when you're at your very best, the hardest or the most valuable at your best. Ideally, they should be the first tasks. Then it will be much easier for you to take on. But when you, and we'll talk a little more about this when we are talking about productivity, but when, because remember, again, if we go into the finite, assuming that this is your wheel, this is the size of your wheel, it's from A to Z here. So every passing moment, your wheel and energy is getting less and less and less and less. So if this is all you have and you have to attack or work on something this big, then you won't manage. You say, no, let me tackle that tomorrow. So if you can start your day with the biggest tasks, then it is much easier, because then your will is still stronger. You have more mental, emotional, and physical resources available to you. Therefore, whichever the task is, it looks manageable compared to when your inner resources are lower. Number 4 is the prime place strategy. That environment is a great motivator. Set an environment that enthuses you to work. Clean up your table. Oh Lord, there's a time I left my table not as pleasant, and my 7-year-old now really organized it well, and she came and said, so I hadn't noticed. So then she came and said, Daddy, so what do you say? I said, what? Don't you see your table? Oh, I said, oh, thank you, sweetheart. Because we train her that if something nice is done for her, she should always say, thank you. So whenever we do, so before she used not to be tuned into that. So you give her something and she walks away and you're like, what do you say? Oh, thank you, Daddy, or thank you, Mommy. So now the same trick she plays on us now. If she does something and you do not, pay back the plaudits, then she will say, what do you say, Daddy? What do you say, Mommy? So it's as if psychologically, unconsciously she knew. And with children, my coach tells me that children below the age of 11, they are connected to source. They get direct divine guidance. So it's as if she knew that, hey, your table needs to be organized to be productive. Why is this strategy important? So again, the container, the idea of the container. I learned it when I used to do consulting as a training consultant for British Council, and I learned it from a gentleman called Hugh Moffat. He's the headquarters of British Council. I'm not sure whether he still works there. Wonderful gentleman. So he used to say, a container is very important in terms of how we are going to perform. So we were working on a certain project, and always the environment we used to work in was 5-star hotels across the African continent. So I recall one time, of course, some of you know my background. So one time we went to Nigeria, and there was this spot we were working in, and I entered, it had a sitting, it was a suite. I was like, wow, for me, who was from a very humble background, I was like, wow, for me, I was very happy. And only to later discover that actually the place was not a 5-star, it was a 4-star space. So when he came and some other, they're like, no, we have to go to a 5-star place because, we need a wonderful container. The container is very important in terms of how we will perform. And I was like, yeah, you're very right. But inside I was like, what? Anyway, we went to an even better place, a 5-star space. And that's why I learned the issue of container. What's your environment? The environment is going to influence how you're thinking and feeling. So it might mean you go to a quieter place. And there are people who work best when there is some music. Like my wife tells me that for her, when there's music in the background, she's at her best. For me, I want total quiet. If not, then it has to be something like, like harp music. Let me see. I usually have it on. No, I had paused it. So I usually have like harp music if I'm working, not when I'm hearing words, but harp music. Okay. So something like that. I don't know whether you're hearing it, but something very gentle like that is fine with me when I'm working. But when I'm hearing words in the background, people singing and all, no. That's not for me. Or for my wife, It's the other way around. She wants her music playing and then she's off to the races, focused and productive. So the key, when I say environment, I'm not going to choose the environment for you. I'm going to propose, find and figure out the environment that truly works for you. So for example, for me being a midst nature, when there's nature, super, super duper. I'm in heaven, literally. So what's your prime place to? What is your prime environment when you're super productive? Again, it takes that level of awareness to figure this out. Okay. Next is the goal strategy. The goal strategy is setting goals and sticking to them. You tell yourself, by this time, I must have finished this. This is linked to the accountability mindset I had talked about. So, for example, I know that before I sleep tonight, there's something I have to deliver to finish because I want to deliver good news to my coach and mentor tomorrow at 2 p.m. Ugandan time. So that's the goal I have, is that before I sleep, I would have finished that particular item. Okay. So what's your goal? So you set goals, stick to them. Say, you know what? I'm going to finish this by this particular time. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the skill set. And with this skill set, we want to look at 5 steps that will help you eliminate procrastination. The first step is you prioritize your tasks. What is at hand? Make a list, a to-do list of the tasks and goals you need to work on. This could be a list for the day, the week, the month. You may have more than one list. I remember one of my good friends when we were at the university, Joseph Okia, used to do his goals on a Sunday afternoon. And I thought, wow, what a practice. So he used to prioritize, as a university student. I was like, wow, that's amazing. He told me he learned it from, I remember there's this student organization, the network. I need to remember, ISEC. Yeah, he told me he learned that from ISEC. And that's really cool. So if you can make a list. Now, when it comes to lists, what I've found very useful is, at least for me, and also based on research, is if you can write that list a night before, it always helps. I always don't do it myself, to be 100% transparent with you. What I can tell you is whenever I write things the night prior, then in the morning, it's even much easier for me to jump onto those tasks. So that's something I still need to work on myself, to have as a habit to write the tasks the night prior. There are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, you sleep knowing what you have clarity about tomorrow. Number two, research also tells us that when you sleep over a task, then you might get some ideas as you wake up. So as you go to sleep, your subconscious mind starts working on the solutions. So you might get answers in the dream, or you might wake up in the morning with this aha moment. But that aha moment only comes when you have that clarity over what you're going to work on. So it's like, as you're going to sleep, the angels visit you to give you some answers. Say, hey, sweetheart, I know you have this other issue, but these are some ideas for you to consider. You could do this, you could do that, you could do that. All right. So I believe it's much easier for the angels to speak to us when we are asleep. Okay. That's my theory. Then next is you need to break down the tasks. Break the task into all the small steps that are involved in achieving the task. This makes them more palatable. This is now the chunking strategy comes in. How can you make them smaller? How can you break them into smaller pieces? There's a webinar I wanted to do, and I said, okay, let me do, what's the topic? I said, okay, fine. Okay, now let me do the research. I did that, do the studying. I said, okay, now let me work on my story. Okay, now let me work on the content. Now let me work on this. Now, okay, now that I've finished that, let me do the revising. Okay, now that is done, let me send it to my designer to work on the slides. Okay, now let me review it. Now let me do the recording. So smaller pieces. So if I think about all the tasks involved, which are about, if I think about the whole project, which could be like 20 to 30 micro tasks, then I could be overwhelmed. So again, think, what are those small steps you need to take? Think one step. Think one step. Then the next one will be clear, but break it down. Then the next key is to set time limits. When should you accomplish what? You remember we were talking about meetings, and we said with meetings, you need a specific timeline or time frame as to when people should accomplish or finish what they are talking about, as an example. Now, you should also consider having that meeting with yourself. You're meeting with a task, and now that you're meeting with this task and that you're engaging, what is the deadline on that? I actually like that metaphor. You and the task are meeting, you are engaging. So what is the timeline for both of you to make sure that you are complete? When you set time limits, it makes guidance easier, because you notice, because I know we have a specific timeline here, I could tell, okay, this top of the hour, I know I have an idea. So, okay, at the top of the hour, that's when we can have a break or something like that, and we have to be done by this time. So you need such little guides in between. And again, this may seem like common sense, but I like one of my teachers used to say that common sense does not mean common practice. So just because it's simple doesn't mean that you're practicing. So I have to remind you and ram it in your brain, in your head, so to speak, because sometimes I also do not do that, and then I pay the price. So as I'm ramming it under your throat, I'm ramming it under my own throat too. So set time limits. When you do, things are much easier to accomplish within that time frame. Like now, I know we have to be done by a particular time, and so far I've been keeping time, so to speak. Eliminate distractions. That is a big one. Identify them, keep them away. My reading room door is locked. I know. What's that? Is it your phone that is not in silence? What's that? What distracts you? Are they, what are they called? Are they certain notifications that you've left on your computer? Every time, pew, 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 you're working, then you have to check. Now, according to productivity, when you switch your mind from a task and you go to something else, it will take you about 25, 30 minutes to switch, to go back into the zone. So it's very important to know what those distractions are. So this evening, I want you to think, what are those distractions that come your way which distract you? So for me, I've told you about me and Arsenal News. One of the things that was a big, big distraction was that I used to visit a certain website, and it was pulling news from all these feeds from across the world. So the whole day, it would take me hours, literally. I'm even embarrassed to say that, but no need to be embarrassed. Anyway, just to share a lesson. And so I had to limit and say, you know what, this is too much. Let me limit it to these sites, which just give me the refine the best of the best. That's it. Okay. So you have to be aware of those distractions. And then once you know what they are, then you eliminate them keenly. All right. So it's very, very important to note. Next is disciplined, consistent action in implementation. Now, the key word, my friend, there is consistency. 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 The trick is to develop a particular timeline or time frame, so that automatically in your head, you no longer need to be motivated or inspired. It's just almost like second nature. So that's why for this series, it's at a particular time of day, not Monday on this day, Tuesday, this day, then Wednesday, then that becomes confusing to the brain. So me sticking to a particular timeline or time frame consistently is on purpose, such that I wire my brain to say, okay, this time, between this time and this time, you block it out. No other commitment other than this. So it's wild. So once it starts getting to lunchtime, my brain already says, okay, do you have this in place? Do you have that in place? Do you have that in place? Do you have this in place? Okay. So automatically, no one needs to motivate me or inspire. No, it is 4 p.m. That's it. Consistent. So you might, not might. So what I would encourage you to think about is, what is that timeline that you can give yourself to work on certain things? If you're in sales, for example, you could say, all right, between 9 and 11, that's the time for, making sales calls. So, okay, between this time and this time, that's when I write. From between 7 to 9, I write. Nothing else but writing. So that's the time. Monday to Saturday or Sunday, whatever the time might be. So you specify the timeline and then you make it consistent. So the key thing is, what puts all this together is to minimize distractions and then you eliminate bad habits. Minimize distractions has been clear. The eliminate bad habits, it's you to figure out what are those habits that steal your time, that get you into procrastination mode. I gave you an example of me and that other website I don't want to even mention in case we have a national fan here. That was very distracting. It was a habit. It was a distraction and a habit. So part of what I would encourage you this evening to think about, or you can pause this recording if you're watching the recording, is what are the distractions you need to minimize when you're working on things, and what are those habits that you need to eliminate as soon as now, so that you make a commitment and say, I'm going to do this. So remember, the key thing is to have a to-do list, have a diary where you record this, and there's been a debate, what's better, one where you handwrite or an electronic diary. So I would say use what you're most comfortable with. What I know is that according to neuroscience, when you write something, it sticks even better. So it's the mind-body connection is stronger when you write it physically. So if you can do that, I would say both. Fahad away. A personal goals register. What are your goals? Can you keep checking to see where you are at? Are you on track? You're off track? What is it that you want to do or need to do differently? The other key is a habit list. When I say habit list, what are those habits that you need to break, as an example? And what are those habits you need to develop, as an example? So one of the habits that I was extremely keen on to develop the last 3 months was to sleep early. Now, I would say I'm 80% there. So I used to sleep very late, and I've been working on it. So I would say 8 out of 10 times, at least I sleep early, meaning by 10 or thereabouts, I'm in bed. It used to be past midnight. So for me, that's a habit I'm working on, because I know that when I sleep enough, then I'm more productive. When I sleep less, I'm less productive. So that to me is a very, very useful habit. The habit of exercise, as an example. That's something I worked on, and I'm now comfortable with it. So I exercise regularly. So again, it's up to you to figure that one out. Okay, personal goals register done. So before we continue, so a personal goals register as a reminder again to put you in the green range. So just double check, especially with this slide right here. Justin says one of the key distractions is emails and WhatsApp notifications. Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear you. As for these ones, WhatsApp notifications. Well, tell you what, as of this recording, I'm not yet on WhatsApp. And that was one of the main reasons why. Am I asking and proposing that you get off? No, I'm just telling you my choice. There are people who are excellent at managing those. For me, I felt that it would be too much for me to handle. So yeah, it can be distracting. I know that I miss, say, 20% of the useful stuff. And I also know it saves me from the 80% of the distractions. So I can live with that. Flavia said email notifications, Microsoft Teams notifications, and social media distract me a lot. Yeah, so Flavia, now that you know, then you figure out what can you do, right? What can you do about that? WhatsApp especially, but got one strategy. All right, cool. Ethan, my Sunday is fully and no more excuses of procrastination. Okay, great to hear that. All right, cool. Let's talk about the mastery. With mastery, there are a couple of things we need to look at. Number one, you have to think from the big vision. What's the big vision? And from the big vision, what are those projects that need achieving? Once you think about those projects, ask yourself, what are the resources required? The people to work with, the accountability mechanisms, the reward system. So meaning that becomes a building block. And then you find a way and you ask yourself, how can I have consistent and committed action day in, day out? And once that happens, procrastination is eliminated. So this is the big block of thought process that you need in place to make sure that you get the most out of yourself. And once you do, then this will be very, very useful, okay? To eliminate procrastination. So if you practice this, you work from a big vision, you think about the projects required, you think about the resources required, and then you figure out a way to minimize distractions, eliminate bad habits so that you can have consistent and committed action. Then procrastination will be kicked out of your life, right? So please confirm to me if this makes sense, if this mastery framework makes sense. So this is what I want you to do. Pause the recording if you are watching the recording and discuss this question. What did you find most useful in this presentation or training? And how are you going to implement the lessons moving forward in your life, career, and business to make sure that you overcome procrastination moving forward? So please go ahead, type in the, when you stop this, if you're watching the recording and discuss, think through this. And then, so Justine is asking a great question, that how do you keep consistency of action, and meaning your chosen actions? How do you do that? So there are a couple of things that I found very useful over time. Number one is choose a specific timeline, okay? Choose a specific timeline. There's also a book I would highly recommend you check out. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. The Power of Full Engagement. They made research, and what they discovered was a couple of things. Number one, if you can have a specific timeline. Number two is if you can describe in detail what you're going to do during that timeline. For example, let's just suppose you want to exercise between 7 to 7:30. So the detailed brief would be, look, I leave my shoes, my jogging attire is right on the doorstep, and upon waking up and going to the bathroom and cleaning my teeth, then I take a liter of water and put on my jogging shoes or attire, and then off I go. I use this route. I run around 10 times the block, and while listening to my motivational music, just to keep my heart, to keep my mind super excited. And then I run 3 times around and then walk 3 times around to calm down, and then come back and then shower, and I feel refreshed and energized, okay? So meaning when you give a brief to your brain in terms of what's going to happen and how it's going to run, then the motivation is much, much easier. So I would say, first of all, the timing. Number 2, the detail of what's going to happen. Then number 3, if you can get an accountability partner. What I mean by that, if it's exercise time, if you know that someone is going to come and run with you. So for me, as an example, when I used to go to the gym, and when this pandemic happened and all that, I got a coach who would come home. So meaning, even if I don't feel excited to do something, I mean, I'm paying him, I have to get out of the house. Even if it's for 15 minutes, I must get out of the house. So that was my accountability system. So you need to get an accountability system. It might mean you get a coach, as an example, to remind you of certain things. Like for me, I got a fitness coach. Because of late, I told him to first pause given what's going on in the world. But for me, I found that to be extremely valuable. Just getting that person who opens the gate, and then I know he has opened the gate, I have to get out of the house, whether I feel like it or not. I mean, I'm going to pay the guy anyway. He's arrived home, I must pay him. So if I'm paying him, then I better get out of the house, okay? More to that, I once committed no WhatsApp and email checks before 10:30 a.m. Started off well, but then over lockdown, over just failure, I lost it along the way. All right, I hear you, Justine. So what you can do is, when you say no email checks and all that, so what you do is, the best way, again, it's really about you asking yourself, okay, what are the conditions? And I believe I will do this a little more on productivity. What conditions do I need to put in place to make sure that this happens? So this is what I would do if I were you. Number one, I would say, okay, I'm not going to switch on internet until 10:30, because you will need internet to be able to check your mail. So meaning you switch off your phone internet, or if you have Wi-Fi and all that, I know you have other internet sources, you switch off all the internet connections, so to speak. That's one. Number two, put your phone in the bedroom. If you're in the reading room, or in other words, you put your phone away. And then, because if it's near, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's in your sight, you're like, okay, let me just check for just 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes end up being 30, trust me. So you need to create conditions that would support your commitment. And then when you succeed that day, say, hooray, congratulate yourself and say, I did it, I did it, I did it. Then you'll be sending a message to your brain to say, look, it's good, I accomplished this, I did this, I made it happen. So Justine, please confirm if that is helpful to you.